All right, everyone. So welcome to today's webinar. So QB Talks, getting started with QuickBooks Commerce. And this is a special treat. So hello to many of you that I know. And then I'll also take a moment to introduce myself for those who are, we haven't met yet. My name is Liz Scott. And I'm, like many of you, a practitioner, and I've got an accounting firm, and we specialize with small businesses and connecting a lot of apps. Because of that love of apps, one of the things that I do is I'm the co-host of the Appy Hour, and that is a webinar series that's designed just for accountants and talking about what apps to connect and how to connect them in a step-by-step. And I do that webinar series with Heather Satterley. And then the thing that we're going to be doing today is we are going to be looking at how do you use some of the QuickBooks features that are inside of QuickBooks Online. So that's another big part of what I do. But before I get started, I want to say a special thank you to Rewind. So Rewind is our series sponsors for QB Talks. And QB Talks series is brought to you by Insightful Accountant, and they have several different episode series. This is the QB Talks QuickBooks Online series. So this is where we're talking about all things QuickBooks Online, and then you get to see me in that series. There is also a QB Talks desktop and then also apps. So thank you to Rewind, and I want to give a little bit of information about Rewind. And so Rewind Backups protects the critical data which runs your firm and your clients' businesses. Online accounting software products don't automatically save your transactions and files if deleted. Rewind Backups is the undo button for your online accounting software, automatically saving and restoring the latest versions of your QuickBooks. So as of September 22nd, Rewind Backups are available for QuickBooks Online, Shopify, Shopify Plus, GitHub, Jiro, Trello, Microsoft 360, and BigCommerce, with dozens of other platforms currently in beta. I'm going to go ahead and launch the polling question, so that way you have a chance to be able to respond to questions about Rewind. You should see the polling question for Rewind, and if you can answer that, then we'll move over to our next sponsor, which is our episode sponsor for today. But while I'm doing that, let me give you a little bit of information about today. So our good friend Gary, he typically is our person who leads these webinars, and he is out today, so you get me. So bear with me as I'm launching polls and answering questions, and want to make sure that you get all of the information possible. So if you have questions, just know today I'm solo, so it may take me a minute to get over to the questions, but I love them. So I will pause throughout the presentation today in order to go over and look at those questions that you're posting. This really is an opportunity for me to be able to say, am I hitting the topics that are relevant? Did I slow down enough to be able to talk about some of these brand new features that are available? So super important that if you have questions, go post them, and I will review them as we move throughout the webinar today. I'm going to go ahead and count down. It looks like the majority has answered this poll. So I'm going to count it down to 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So thank you to our series sponsor. I also want to talk about my good friends over at Lisio. So many of you are also good friends with our buddies over at Lisio, and they have created a community, and that community is called The Grove. And this is like no other. It has branches where you'll find events, discussions, and step-by-step training that's designed to help solve common challenges that we face in our practices today. So I'm going to launch the poll for Lisio to see if you are familiar. Let me go ahead and go to this next poll and make sure to launch. And then my question here is, would you like to be invited to Lisio Circle? I'm going to throw over in chat this link so that way you've got it. So you should see in chat now if you want to have the direct link. The other thing I want to do while you are answering this poll is I'm going to go ahead and upload the PDF for today's session. So today's session is going to be all about QB Commerce, and I'm going to be moving fairly quickly. So to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to follow along or refer back to, you have a chance to view those handouts. So you should see those over in chat. I will go ahead and end the poll. And then if somebody doesn't mind, go ahead and sharing. Do you see over in chat the handouts? And it looks like somebody has said no. So give me just a second. Let me make sure, because I want to make sure you have that. There we go. And then the Lisio Circle, let me make sure that everybody's got that access as well. Okay. And then chat is not showing. So let me look to see if I can show my chat preferences. Okay, so hopefully now you'll see that chat is, we see it in chat. Okay, and then can somebody confirm that yes, you are able to now post into chat, so that way if you've got a question you can, and then we see it in chat. So thank you to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and clear out our Q&A just so that way we I know that we are up to date. Okay, so thank you. Done, done, and done. All right, and then you should be seeing my screen, and I'm going to go ahead and take us over to QB Talks. So the next slide. There we go. And then I see a whole bunch of comments. Yes, you can. And yes, I see most everybody is saying that there is no other thing. Let me go ahead and make sure that I'm posting that just one more time. Let's see. Let's make sure that PDF is uploaded. And you should be able to see it. I've uploaded it twice. Got it. Okay. Thank you, Karen. Thanks for all of the feedback. It really does help, especially whenever you're flying solo. So today I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar does not qualify for CPE, and we will record. So this session is being recorded and will be posted on the YouTube channel. And you will receive a link to that YouTube channel following this recording and the end of this webinar session. And then as we move along, you can just remember to post some comments over inside of chat, and then I will look at those as we move. Okay, so the topics that I want to cover today is QB Commerce. So how do you navigate it, and what exactly is included? And then what about the connected channels? So whenever we're thinking about sales channels, those are what we're connecting inside of QuickBooks Commerce. And so I want to show with you what those features are. And then we'll also be doing an understanding of the orders. So sales orders and Shopify or Amazon or eBay channels, those are channels, and they also have orders. So there's a two-part there when we're going to talk about the orders. And then the next piece is the payouts. So how is money either deposited into the bank account, or sometimes there's expenses or refunds. So we'll look at that. And then what kind of reporting is available. And so whenever I'm thinking about the e-commerce conversation, I always like to stop and talk about, there is this huge boom, and there has been for quite I want to say probably 10 years for people to get online. That doesn't seem to be going away. And there's this continual need to be able to get inside of a platform that will allow you to have flexibility to sell online or maybe in person. So based on those kinds of needs, that's how you determine which channel to choose. So a lot of the clients that I work with are in Shopify, and that's because it allows them to have a brick and mortar store and also be online. Amazon, the same thing. You're able to have a sales channel where you're able to post your goods and services inside of Amazon, and then same is true for eBay. The one difference is that Shopify acts like a web store. And so you actually have a URL that you're going to go to that is specifically designated to the business that you are working with, that is that e-commerce business. Oh, hi, Murph. Big hearts to you. And thank you. So what we're going to be looking at is the B2C, so the business to consumer. So there's going to be a lot of businesses out there that are selling directly to consumers, and we want to be able to look at how are those sales recorded and how do we utilize the data in order to be able to make some decisions by looking in QuickBooks. So we won't have to hop over into that sales channel, but instead we can stay in QuickBooks for making those decisions. E-commerce comes with its own set of pain points that are definitely challenges whenever I'm thinking about e-commerce. We have the multi-channel. So I was talking about earlier Shopify, eBay, and Amazon. Each of those are considered a channel. So each of those sales channels are channels that you can map into QuickBooks and then record those income and expenses streams from that. Another pain point is all of the various different payment methods. We're going to look at some of the limitations with QuickBooks Commerce, so that way you're able to be aware of if you are outside of a payment solution that is directly mapped inside of that channel, what are the workarounds for you? Clearing deposits. So a lot of times you might have a sale that is going to be pending payment. So maybe it's posted yesterday on the 18th, the sale took place, but the payment is not going to actually clear until maybe Monday. So you need to make sure that you've got clearing accounts that are available for that clearing of that deposit. The other thing that allows you to bundle payments is clearing accounts. So we're going to look at how does QuickBooks Commerce handle clearing deposits and clearing accounts. Another pain point is shipping. So if your income is and expenses are being recorded for shipping, you need to be able to track that. Are you recovering all of the costs that are associated with shipping? Or is there a markup? And so you have a little bit of income that comes from that shipping. So those are things that we'll look at. And then the metrics. So it's really important if you are selling online that you're also keeping track of the marketing for online. Businesses don't have a person or a billboard that's outside that says go buy here and people walk in. Instead, you've got to advertise online. So it's really important to keep track of what are the sales, what's the expenses, and then your bottom line for each of those sales channels. And then inventory. So if you are somebody who is selling goods, then you need to be able to manage that inventory somewhere. And that is going to be one of the things that we are going to talk about. There are some QuickBooks Commerce specifics that are going to deal with inventory. If you are somebody who is in that early launch of QuickBooks Commerce, then you are part of that Trade Gecko group, and you are able to actually have your inventory items inside of QuickBooks and be able to have not only the commerce accounting piece inside of QuickBooks, but you also had your inventory. That segment, the inventory, has been paused for a minute. So we're going to look at what is available right now. If you are somebody who already had the inventory, then that's still continued to be supported. If you are somebody who, like a lot of my clients, are using Shopify, then their inventory is actually hosted over in Shopify. And so QuickBooks Commerce is going to be a perfect solution for you to be able to have those sales imported. So the first place I want to begin is talking about QuickBooks Commerce itself. And if you look at the title of this is Commerce Accounting, and that's exactly where we want to begin, because if you are somebody who is wanting to stay on top of the trends that are happening, you want to be able to look at the income and the expenses for your sales channels, then this is an easy avenue for you to be able to have all of your data in one place. So if you think about your QuickBooks accounting as all inside of QuickBooks, then also you can think about your commerce accounting. There are actions that you have to take, and we're going to go through those actions today in order to be able to see those sales. So just like with bank feeds, there's that for review. Commerce accounting works the exact same way. So there is a for review, but then you have to do something with that data in order for it to post to QuickBooks. So those steps are what we're going to go through so that way you understand each one of those pieces and then what actions that you need to take in order to be able to have access to the data. So quick question, Caleb, commerce is different than the prior trade Gecko product, correct? So let me go ahead and clarify just a little bit further. Yes, QuickBooks bought Trade Gecko last year, and there was a launch of commerce accounting for QuickBooks. The product was able to, at the time, handle inventory. They did a beta test, and there was quite a bit of feedback. And so based on that feedback, what has been pulled is the ability to post and to monitor inventory inside of QuickBooks Commerce as it is right now. So for those who are looking for an inventory solution, then just know QuickBooks Commerce is coming soon with the inventory support, but not right now. So hopefully that answers that question, Caleb. And then, is it better to use QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Online Advanced? So Randall, great question. You have some different options here. So if you are someone who is using Simple Start or Essentials, then you are going to be limited by the amount of sales channels that you can connect. If you are somebody who is using QuickBooks Online Plus or Advanced, then you have unlimited sales channels that you can connect. I think I'm going to go off memory here. Simple Start is 1 sales channel, and I think Essentials is 3 sales channels. But those were really great questions. So let me move on. And one of the biggest differences that is that you're going to be able to access QuickBooks Commerce directly from inside your QuickBooks account. And this is going to allow for you to be able to see inside of your one login, how is your sales channel performing? And so if that's one sales channel or multiple sales channels, you can actually come over and go into your Commerce Center. And inside of that Commerce Center, you can look at the details of that sales channel or group of sales channels. And there's a dashboard whenever you go over into QuickBooks Commerce. So just whenever you log into QuickBooks, you have a dashboard that you start with. Same thing is true for Commerce. So you will start over inside of the overview. And at your overview tab, this is where you can see how many channels do you have connected. So if you look over here to my right, I can see that my sales channels, I've got my widget box that's here, and I've got 2 different Shopify sales channels connected. And I want to stop and talk about that for just a second. There's several different clients that I work with that sometimes they have sales channels that are US based, or they're Australian based, or the variety of different sales channels and maybe different currencies, or they have different businesses, income streams inside of different Shopify accounts. So you can have multiple different Shopify accounts connected, or you could have a Shopify account connected and then also have an e-commerce, Amazon or eBay. And then how you'll be able to see what all's connected is this widget that tells you the channels that are connected. And then you can also see revenue streams that's going to tell you by which channel and how are you performing in each one of those different channels. And this is US based, Karen, yes. And Nancy, it looks like you're talking about Venmo and Zeal. And yes, we will talk about how do you clear payments that are not collected and tracked inside of, for example, Shopify. So Shopify Payments has got a Shopify export that you're able to collect that data. And if you think about what's available right now, which is the QuickBooks Commerce, and it's the accounting of the commerce channel, then you're going to want to see how are you performing. But just know that not all pieces are here and able to be exported. For example, if I'm using Shopify, I can see my Shopify payments and export that information over into QuickBooks. But if I'm using Stripe or Venmo or something else that Shopify cannot give all of the details, it doesn't know all of the information for payouts, then you're going to have some manual pieces that you're going to need to go through. And then, yes, that next question is related to exactly what you asked here, which is what can be connected. So the available sales channels connections to date right now are Amazon, eBay, and Shopify. And then if you look down, there are some notes to make mention of. So if you are selling in the US, then you want to be able to be aware of that. So US based Shopify sales channels is what's going to be connected. The other one is, do you track inventory? And if you do, then as of right now, QuickBooks Commerce is not designed for that. That is something that's on the roadmap to come later. And the other piece of that is if you have third-party payments like PayPal or Authorize.net or Stripe or Venmo, all of those various things, then QuickBooks Commerce is not going to be able to pull that data because it's not available in the feed in that sales channel. So the thing that we're going to do is look at the settings. So this is really important whenever you're thinking about the setup of your QuickBooks Commerce sales channel. Each of those sales channels, you have settings and you're able to go in and map the data to either a particular account or add a new account or select an account that already exists. And so we're going to look at that mapping. Again, I really am a big advocate of sharing slides. So I do want to go through these slides, but then I'm going to take you live to look at how does this look inside of QuickBooks. So we have a demo account that we're going to be looking at today. So when it comes to mapping, you're going to select the settings on top of the overview. Let me go back here. So on the sales channel overview tab, you're going to see that there's a drop-down menu and you can choose settings. And so inside of that settings, you've got 4 different options. We have general, we have items, customers and vendors, and then we also have the advanced. So we're going to talk through each of those and what is visible there. So inside of general, you're going to have how do you want to map your deposits? What account will be mapped? Payments is the same thing. Where do you want to map? And then if you want to disconnect, then that's visible at the bottom of your general tab. And the next one is items. So this is really designed for being able to say sales are mapped to which sales item. And as of right now, we're not doing inventory. So you're going to want to choose one area to map all sales items. And then if you want to rename that, then you certainly could. But looking at all sales products and services that are available, you could go and view those, but just know you're not going to be able to map to inventory or non-inventory items right now. The next piece is customers and vendors. Instead of all of your sales coming in and importing each one of those customers, instead, what's recommended is just to say we have one customer and what do you want that customer name to be? And so in this case, because we didn't have a customer that was set up for Accounting Lifeline, Shopify sales, one was created for us. So that's also important to note that if we're coming over here and we're looking at the advanced settings, if you do not have an account set up for these different chart of accounts, then one is going to be created for you. If you do have accounts set up and you would prefer to map to those, then what we're going to do is go look at how would you adjust that mapping. So let me share my screen and you should start to be able to see QuickBooks Commerce. And I'm going to take you into the settings. So you should be able to see my screen now with QuickBooks. Hopefully everybody's able to see that. Now I am demoing QuickBooks. And here we're inside of our settings, and we're able to come over and look at the bank account if we wanted to change. There's sometimes that I have clients who might have a specific bank account that they use for a sales channel. That's really nice in some cases, because then we're able to go through and look to see, are all of the deposits that were expected and all of the expenses, did they all clear? So in some cases, I would say maybe you would add new, and it would be that bank account that would be mapped to that, that bank account needed. So for right now, manual is what I recommend. And we're going to go look at what do I mean by payouts, but payouts are what host the transactions and the payments into QuickBooks. I'm going to say for the beginning, I would recommend that you do this manually so that way you have a really good feel. I'm a big component. If it just happens, you don't understand all of the pieces. And so to be able to thoroughly understand how the data is being imported into commerce accounting, then you would want to make sure that you're able to do this manually. Items, again, this is where you could go over and choose a different item, but commerce accounting is going to create one for you to begin with. Same thing is true for Shopify shipping. If, like in our example, we're connected to Shopify, so a new chart of account was created. If I wanted to map it to something different, then I always could. I could come over here and I could say, you know, I have a different shipping account and I want to use that instead. And then discounts. So some are going to want to have discounts tracked separately. Some are going to want that to go to the sales account. So however it is that you want to specify, you certainly can. And the same thing is true for your customer, choosing which customer. You could go to your drop down. You could choose which customer would be the one to select. Clearing account, this one I want to stop and talk about for a second. Clearing accounts is how commerce accounting is going to post to the payouts, and it's going to be where the payouts are going to clear to the bank. So whenever you're thinking about a payout, I'm going to say that it's a group of sales that are lumped together. Maybe today is the 19th, and we've had a bunch of sales that have taken place yesterday. And I want all of those sales on the 18th to be grouped together. So that way, when the payment comes through, that payout is going to match the bank. So there's going to be multiple transactions that are going to be part of that payout. And we can look to see how that detail is pulled in, because the details are pulled in, just kind of so you're FYI. But there is a summary of the payout. And the reason that there's a summary of the payout is so that way you match to the bank account. If you are somebody who is using some type of other payment method, then, for example, Shopify payments, then you would need to have a different clearing account for that, because you would want to set aside and say, I'm tracking PayPal as a clearing account to make sure that all PayPal payments are received. And then you can see here, we can have the different accounts that we can choose from. What are going to be our fees? So every single sales channel that I have been privy to always has fees. And sometimes those are a little harder to find than others. And so if you want to be able to separate those, which I recommend, then you would want to make sure that that's mapped to an account where you could go and see those expenses. Any type of adjustments or sales tax. And again, this is going to be sales tax that is collected in the sales channel, is just going to post to the account. We do not want to use the QuickBooks sales tax to then also calculate sales tax. We're going to allow the sales channel to do its job, and we're just going to post to the sales tax payable account what the sales tax liability is. And then reserve balance. Let me talk about reserve balance, because we also have our clearing account, but the reserve balances, for example, if you've got somebody who is a high risk seller, maybe they're brand new, or maybe they're selling something that is deemed high risk from Shopify or eBay or Amazon, then there's going to be a reserve that's going to take place. I've got a client who sells CBD. They are considered high risk inside of Shopify, so their sales are always reserved. There's a portion of those sales that are reserved for so many days, and I think it's like 10% or 30%, I can't remember exactly, but that is what that reserve balance is for. Not everybody is going to see this, or if you're a brand new Shopify account, you may see that there's reserved balances for a little while, and then after a certain amount of time has passed, then you would no longer need to have that reserved balance. But just want to make sure that everybody's clear that pending balances is different than reserved balance. Pending balance means that yesterday the sale took place, but the payment is pending because it's not going to clear until, maybe tomorrow or Monday. So that would be a pending balance. But reserved is something different. So I just kind of want to highlight those differences there. I'm going to go back over to our slides. That way you're able to see the next piece, which is the sales orders. So if I'm back on my overview screen inside of QuickBooks Commerce, then I'm able to see on my overview screen, how is that sales channel performing? So I can look at one particular sales channel. I can look at all of my sales channels, but I can use that widget drop down to look at all of my total orders by day, by week. So you have some options there. And if you think about your sales orders, this is what is being pulled over based on the orders inside of that sales channel. And I want to look at a question here that Linda has posted. So you understand the clearing account, but why does QuickBooks Commerce under general settings, the regular bank account as a reserved? Because that's where it's going to clear to. So that's a really great question. I'm going to say, Linda, that question is regarding where you don't really have a choice that there's going to be a clearing, but where does that clearing go to? And that's where we want to say which bank account is going to be used. But if you want to specify which clearing account is being used, you can go in and you could map it there. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the Shopify sales. So we're going to talk about Shopify because that's what's connected here. The Shopify sales and QuickBooks sales orders. So what the differences are. So inside of our QuickBooks Commerce accounting, we have our variety of different tabs that we can choose. And one of those tabs is the orders. So orders are going to be brought in, and we can look at each one of these orders, and we can see the dollar amounts, we can see the paid status, we can see the order date, and even the order number. But if we wanted to look at the details of that order, now we're going to be opening up the sales order. And so the sales order is going to be the same thing as our sales receipts. And that detail is coming right over from our sales channel. So that concept here, I just want to stop and make sure is clear. So the orders take place over in your sales channel and then are exported over into QuickBooks Commerce. And then inside of QuickBooks Commerce, you can go and look at your orders, and inside of your orders, you can actually drill down into the details of that specific order. This is different than our payouts because the sales order is taking all of that data and it's pulling it over into QuickBooks. So that way it's individual orders are being created via sales receipts. And then just like you were talking a minute ago, you were asking about the mapping of the accounts. So I've got the clearing account mapped to my Shopify accounting lifeline. So that specific sales channel clearing account. And that is so I can see the posting, and I can see the posting of the payment with the expected payment amounts for the payout. And then I can also go over into my payouts and I can clear that clearing account. And we're going to look at that clearing account in here in just a minute. But I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that the sales order, create a sales receipt, but this is non-posting until you go over in a few steps later and you actually post it. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows right now, this was just a view only. We have to do something in order to post the sales order into QuickBooks to become a sales receipt. So there's action that takes place, which is why we're doing this webinar today, to just kind of walk through. There's various steps here. And, just like anything that's new, it's really cool if you know how to use it. So that's what we're going through today. The other part of this is if you are over inside of that orders tab and you're looking at your sales order, you could filter. You could filter by channel. So maybe you're looking at all channels and you want to just look at your accounting lifeline, sales channel, and Shopify. Then you could do that. You could narrow down to a particular date range as well. So just like a lot of areas inside of QuickBooks that we can filter, you can filter here too. I see a question that just came in, Kat. Is there a way to search for sales receipts by customer name? As of right now, you're looking at the filters that are available. So Kat, that may be something that's coming later, but for right now, that's not something that's possible. I would imagine later on, we'd also be able to search by sales order number. But what I do in this case of the question that you just asked with the filtering, what I do is I go over into more QuickBooks Online Advanced Search. So just our general search, and I might type in a particular name, or I might type in a particular order. And that way I'm able to find the detail that's related to that particular sales order or sales receipt. So you can still search it. It's just, you're going to find it differently. So let me look. So Frank, you're asking a question about, yes, you're going to be able to get the recording of this. So later there will be a YouTube link that will be sent out, so you can see the recording, and you should have access to the handout as well. Let me know if you don't. Refunds are the exact same way. So they're going to be over and inside of the orders area, and you're going to be able to, instead of looking at sales orders, choose refunds. Refunds are really tricky. I haven't ran across any sales channel that does an awesome job of refunds. Sometimes you've got some complications with a client who, instead of issuing an actual refund, they do gift cards. So it's really nice to be able to see inside of QuickBooks Commerce that you've got a refunds tab that you can go over and just filter into the refunds that have taken place. And then you can go and look at what is the sales order that's attached or the payouts if it's been entered and accepted into QuickBooks. So I just want to kind of call out here at the top right, we can see that there's the view sales order or the view payout. So there's always hyperlinks that is going to take you to more information. Okay, so let's keep on going. The payouts, whenever I'm looking at payouts, this is going to be the piece that's still over inside of QuickBooks Commerce, and we've got the payouts that are visible here, and we can go through and we can look at the details. If you open up one of these payouts where it says actions view details, this is like a lot of areas inside of QuickBooks, it's going to open up more information. And then once you open up that information, you can see that you've got carrots here for sales, refunds, expenses that's on this payout of $4,877.42. So if you open up, for example, that sales drop down, then you're going to see over here on the right what's visible there. So each of those orders that we were just looking at inside the orders tab are now part of a payout. And the reason for that is you have all of these orders that took place yesterday on the 17th, but then are not going to pay out individually. They're going to pay out as a group, a summary. And so that's why there's this distinction here of, do you want to go look at the order individual and see what was sold, or do you want to go and look at the payout, which is the summary of all of the orders that were taking place that day, and the payout is going to go to post to that clearing account. The clearing account that we chose earlier is how we're going to be able to see if a sales receipt or a refund or expense is recorded. and we've got our payout next, which is the deposits, then we should have a result of 0. And so this is going to be how you're going to go track. Are you either at a correct balance at the end of the day, or are you at a 0 balance because you've cleared out all of the orders, refunds, expenses, and then also payouts. So anytime that I'm dealing with a clearing account, I go and run a clearing account report fairly regularly in order to make sure that we've got good information there and we don't have a balance that starts to become unruly, either very negative or very positive. So either way. So how are you going to post all of these transactions? We're going to move over into the posting of these transactions, which is visible inside of app transactions. So we're very comfortable with banking. Most of us are using bank feeds, teaching our clients how to use bank feeds. And that's how you're going to also be able to have your connection with your app transactions posting into your QuickBooks. So you'll move over into the app transactions that's right there with your banking center, and they're going to choose which connection. So you can filter down into your connection. You can look at whichever connection it is that you want to then drive down into the, you want to see the payouts, and you want to be able to view all details, which is going to be the sales order, the expense, like the selling fees, and then also any refunds. So for example, we're looking at one right now. So this is an app transaction, and we are going to review it just like what we do bank feeds. So think of this as being your Shopify connected way of being able to view your payouts and then all of the details. We were over in QuickBooks Commerce Center, and that's where you can continue to dig around, and you can look at what are the details of those orders. So you have a actual center dashboard to go to. But this is how we're going to post them. So if we look over here in our app transactions, our for review, we can see that we have a total dollar amount of $41.80. And that's going to be composed of our total sales. So we can see our total sales of $39.65.05. We've got our taxes and then any type of selling fees. So each of those has details to it, and we can come over to our next screen and we can look at reviewing those payouts. So if we come back over into our viewing of our app transactions, we can see the hyperlink that says view details. And if we say view details, then it's going to open up those details. So again, just like what we saw in our payouts, we can come over here and we can see, here's the sales. We would open it up and we would be able to see again our sales order. So it's duplicate information, but it's how do you want to access it? And that's why we're talking about what's available to you and how do you use that information. So inside of the payouts is how you're going to go and post it. If you come back over to your payouts and you're happy with the details there, this is where you're going to confirm. So you're going to say confirm that payout, and now it's posted into QuickBooks. So everything that we've done so far is really the pieces of it to be able to go and view the sales channel and to see that data inside of QuickBooks. But if we want to post, so now we can pull reports, we need to confirm that sales order, just so that way we know if there's any errors, we need to do that correction before we go and post. Once it's inside of QuickBooks, then we're able to come over to the for reviewed, or the reviewed, and then here we're able to see what all did we post that was part of that dollar amount. So we can see that we added the $41.80, and there are 3 different transactions that are part of that posting. We have the sales receipt, which is the total of all of the orders. And again, we've got all of the order breakdown that's inside of that sales receipt. Plus we have the expense. So what are the seller fees for listing inside of that sales channel, in our case, Shopify, and then the total deposit. So this is how you're going to be able to see your total deposit then matching your bank activity. In the example that's right underneath that $41.80, that's where we're able to see, in that scenario, we also had a refund. So the expected amount is less because we had the total sales, we had the expenses of selling on that channel, and then we also had refunds, and that's going to equal our deposit. This part is really important to make sure that you understand, just so that way next we can match to bank feeds. So this is the posting activity. And if you wanted to drill down into any of these different transaction details, here's what would open up. You would be able to see your sales receipt. You'd be able to see what was sold and then the sales tax. Same thing is true for the expenses. Here we've got a summary of all of the expenses that were listed with each one of those orders. So sometimes you have a product line expense. Sometimes you've got just a marketing expense. So each of those are going to be listed as an expense that are going to reduce the amount of that deposit. Same thing with the refund. The refund is going to post over into that clearing account. So you can see right there inside of our refund that's going to be that clearing account. So that way, again, when we move over into the deposit, we are clearing out our deposit. We are clearing out that clearing account, and our deposit then matches and makes sense. Let me move over to this next piece, which is the banking payout match. So we've been only viewing our sales channel activity inside of the commerce accounting area. That is where we can see all of the details that are being pulled from our sales channel. Over inside of our app transactions, that's where we actually post those transactions into QuickBooks. There may be some of you who get really comfortable and you bypass the QuickBooks accounting commerce dashboard and you move straight over into the app transactions. So, that may be part of your workflow. But the thing that you want to do is you also want to make sure, does your app transaction payout match your bank feed? And so in this case, what we have is our Shopify commerce had multiple activities because it was that group of transactions. And then we were able to say what amount was received, and now we can match. This is the part that lots of people get excited about, because the sales channel recording is difficult to get out. And there's several people who are using a variety of different apps. So there's a lot of SaaS-based apps that are available that do the same thing. But in this case, because you're inside of QuickBooks, you're able to, based on your subscription level, use the QuickBooks functionality. So here's where you get your match. Now, the other thing that we had talked about before is these third-party payments. I want to move over into the third-party payments, but before I do want to go and look at some of the questions that have came in to be able to make sure I'm up to date. So Donna, do you have to accept every single order into QuickBooks? And the answer is no, because we went over into the app transactions and we accepted the sales order. That sales order is going to be a summary of all of the orders that have taken place. If you want to go and see the details, that's where you would go over into your commerce area of QuickBooks, and you would look at your orders and you would be able to see the individual orders and open those up. Karen, you're saying, what about the expenses? So I may have already answered this one, but just to confirm that what we were seeing inside of the app transactions is all of the details. So the sales, the expenses, and the refunds that are all associated with that transaction. Linda, let me see. Do you recommend doing a bank rec on each payout to see if the sales channel is skipping? Oh gosh, yes. So Linda, you're asking a question here, and let me just repeat for everyone. So Linda's question is saying, do I recommend reconciling what's coming through QuickBooks Commerce based on that sales channel connection and the bank? 100%, especially whenever it's brand new to you. So you want to make sure that there's not any hiccups. You want to make sure that there's not any discrepancies, because you want to catch it early. For somebody like myself, I might go over and connect and view a week's worth of activity and just make sure that it matches the bank. I don't want to move forward and accept a month's worth of activity, or heaven forbid, a year's worth of activity, and not compare it to the bank to make sure that I have good deposit amounts. So great question. And then, have you tested the imports from Amazon to see if the payouts may match the sales order? So Amazon is different. For those who are unfamiliar with Amazon, there's 2 payout dates. You have like the 14th and the end of the month. In those scenarios, you're going to only have payouts twice a month. And so, yes, you want to go also and make sure that you have matches for the sales channel and the bank account payouts. I think I have one more question here. Is this a reasonable solution for somebody who has hundreds to thousands of transactions? Donna, I think your question is very valid. For my scenario, I have used QuickBooks Commerce for smaller clients. I wanted to be able to test it to make sure that I really liked that integration, and I was able to predict the activity. For some of those sales channels that are larger, so some of my e-commerce clients that have thousands of activity, I have not transitioned them yet over into QuickBooks Commerce. I wanted to myself be really comfortable with what I was seeing, and I am to date. But again, I have not moved over some of those larger clients. If you do, Donna, let me know. Or if once I move over, because in some cases I'm waiting to see the inventory that's going to be available. I want to be able to test all of the components of QuickBooks Commerce and including inventory. Okay. So bank feeds, and then what do you do with these third parties? So if you are somebody who is outside of the sales channel payments, that method that's being accepted that can be fed over into QuickBooks Commerce, then I'm going to suggest that what you would do here is you would need to create your own sales receipt, and you would need to put in the third party payment deposit to account. So again, I think we kind of talked about this in the very, very beginning, that we would need to have maybe multiple clearing accounts if we had multiple different types of payment methods. So here's where I say, if you've got a client who is selling and they're using a variety of different payment processors, I would stop to look at what are the expenses that they're actually enduring from those third-party payments. Shopify is kind of hidden. So what I've learned with Shopify is that it looks like you're going to get a better rate if you go through authorize.net or one of these other payment processors. And then it makes it where you have to do manual transactions like this. You need to go in and create what was the sales that were sold, what's the deposit to account, because then you have to go and monitor the clearing of that payout. But what I found is that Shopify actually charges a third-party payment processor fee. So you don't actually end up saving any money. PayPal is the one that I have found that is a little different. You are able to use payout from PayPal. And then what I've done in that scenario is I've connected the PayPal feed, the app, and then I'm able to see all of the PayPal paid outs. So that's my workaround for PayPal. But the other payment processors really aren't going to save you any money, and it's going to create a lot of manual work. So if you looked at, before you connected, what were some of the conditions? One of them is that you have payouts from that sales channel. And if not, then you're going to have to go in and create that sales receipt. You're going to need to go in and create the expense. So sometimes it's difficult to go and find all of the expenses for that particular transaction, or that day's worth of activities, or that payment methods worth of activities. So this gets a whole lot trickier if you have a customer or client that you're working with that has a whole bunch of different third-party payment processors. The next piece is then, yes, you would need to go over into that bank deposit that you had created. You would need to clear it with the clearing account that would be associated to that clearing account that's being monitored, Stripe, or authorize.net, whatever it is. you would need to then make that bank deposit, clear that clearing account. And then I agree, I would go back over and I would look at the bank feeds and I would make sure that the expected deposit matches. And I want to stop for a second because before I move over into the report, I want to address the second part of the question here, Donna. So you had said not moving over anytime soon. It looks like QuickBooks Commerce is in progress. And that's what I'll say is it's in progress. For those who have the nightmare of how do you get sales data into QuickBooks, there's a lot of apps out there that say they do it, but they don't do it well. So this is a solution for people who are struggling with how do they get the sales data into QuickBooks without it being a manual process every single time that you post. And that's where I think that QuickBooks Commerce has a lot of usefulness, is to take out the manual piece. I also want to acknowledge that there is some growing room here. How do you handle third-party payouts? I can tell you that a lot of the other apps that I'm working with for QuickBooks Commerce and pulling in that data, they struggle with that too. The reason that they're struggling with that is because the data isn't visible inside of the sales channel. They don't have access to Shopify, for example. It's not going to know what authorized.net charged you per transaction fee. So it's not going to be able to give you a payout amount because it doesn't know how much authorized.net charged you. So in those kinds of cases, it makes sense that no matter which type of tool that you're using in order to export that data, you need to be able to go and reconcile that third-party process payments. The other piece is the fees. I can tell you exporting the fees on your own is really hard. Amazon and Shopify doesn't make it easy for you to know how much did it actually cost you to sell. So those are challenges where I would say that it's nice to use some type of exporting tool like QuickBooks Commerce to be able to pull that data. The next piece here is, I will say, what is nice is being able to pull a report by channel. Now, QuickBooks is calling them locations. So each of the channels that you connect are going to be a location. And so you can run a profit and loss based on that location, and you can see all of the income, expenses, including selling fees, and total profit. So that is kind of a nice thing to be able to go and see. And Dawn, I'm not saying that there's not apps out there who do it well. I'm just going to say that they do struggle, and it's not a straightforward, at least in my experience. Yeah. So what's next? Inventory. So inventory is on the roadmap for QuickBooks Commerce. And so those of you who are waiting to be able to manage inventory inside of QuickBooks, then I would say stand by. I think that that's on the roadmap for next year, some more to come later. But those of you who are having your inventory managed somewhere else, like in my case, Shopify is managing the inventory for those clients, then we're able to pull the sales summary information into QuickBooks. And that has been pretty cool so far. So just kind of a recap, we walked through how do you navigate QuickBooks Commerce and what are the different channels that can be connected, and that you can actually dive into each channel individually. And then orders. So your sales orders and your sales receipts in QuickBooks are both part of your orders. Your payouts is that's the deposit piece that's going to line up with your bank, and then being able to look at the reporting. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. I know we went through quite a bit, and so yes, the PDF is uploaded and you should be able to see that. And then also the recording will be available and posted to YouTube very soon. So thank you so much for the questions. I enjoy the questions. It always helps to keep me honest. And it also helps to see what is everybody else seeing and where can I elaborate some more. So thank you, everyone, and I will see you all soon. Bye.